Hi, I'm Steven Seidel. You're watching Influencing Entrepreneurs with Cassmer Ward.
After years of teaching entrepreneurship and consulting business owners, I realized that true knowledge comes from the wins and losses of those entrepreneurs. These are the stories of those business leaders. I'm Cassmer Ward, and this is Influencing Entrepreneurs.
Just so tonight is the first game of the NFL football season, and my Eagles will be playing.
I confirmed my lineup last night. I
did that too.
Dashing, yeah.
It's like if your lineup isn't good now, then it's never going to be good because it has all the players that you drafted, right?
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, that's what I did over Labor Day weekend. Is and I don't even live in the neighborhood, but my old neighborhood, we still to this day meet every year and run our same league, and everybody puts $20 in a pot, so it's fun.
Nice, good stuff.
Today we're here with Steven Seidel with the Seidel Agency. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Cass. Appreciate you bringing me on. I'm super excited to talk. I'm a big fan of your podcast, and just an honor to be here.
Well, no, I appreciate it. And I was looking at you. We got a lot to talk about. You've got a very diverse background in what you've done over the years. And I want to talk about a little bit. You went on the TEDx circuit. You gave it your TEDx.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
So that experience was probably one of the most challenging that I've ever had. And thank you for asking that. It's ever since, I first heard about TED and TEDx. I think it started with Simon Sinek and his Start With Why. It's always been something that I wanted to do. So I submit a couple times, and then they had somebody back out at the University of Kentucky. They were doing a TEDx. Somebody backed out and they said, "Hey, do you want in?" And they had my submission, and I said, absolutely. But I didn't realize the magnitude of work that actually it took. I had 1 month to prepare and get it all ready, whereas everybody else had known for 3-4 months. So my timeline was a lot shorter than everybody else's.
When did you connect with yourself? I'm imagining when you do connect with yourself, you're like, there's the aha of like, I didn't realize I was disconnected until you're like, now I'm joined.
Yeah. So within the connection process, it comes different for different people. But for me, it is a moment where within my mom and my sister, and we were dealing with the estate. And when you get into the estate, you find out a lot of things. So anybody who's going, has parents, things, I strongly suggest, maybe you work through that in advance. But it actually drove a wedge between myself and my sister. And at that moment, that's not what's meant to be. Like, I'm not meant to not talk to my sister, to not have my mom no longer around. And we had to dig deeper within ourselves to realize that this isn't for us to disconnect us. We need to find what our purpose was. And my purpose is to connect and to have others realize that true connection and sharing their stories is their greatest valuable asset. And so we needed to connect over the previous stories that we've had, the story that we have now, and where we wanted to take it in the future.
What is one of the stories that kind of resonates with you that you carry it around in your pocket?
So there's a story that I talk about in the talk, and this was one moment that I really connected on a deeper level. So this to you might look like just French fries. It's kind of a fun little phone. It's a McDonald's phone for listeners. But so growing up, I always used to go after school, after sporting events. My mom would take me to get a value meal, and it was those moments where I would get her the fries at the bottom of the bag, which we all know are the tastiest ones anyway, but I would give her the fries at the bottom of the bag. And it was always just a joy just to see her get those final 2 moments, those final fries. And looking back, I realized that was one of the most important moments and cherished moments in my life. And so I wrote a whole piece called The Fries at the Bottom of the Bag. And that was kind of the inception of my talk. But while I was cleaning out my mother's house, like I talked about, reconnecting, I saw that there was a bag in the corner, and at the bottom of the bag was this little phone that was French fries in the bottom of the bag. And so it reminded me that, yes, my mother is still here. Her spirit is still here. She might have passed on, but those fries at the bottom of the bag, those are those little moments that we share with each other that we might overlook, only to go back and savor. But really, it's up to us to live in the moment, to live in the now, and understand that these moments that we're living are the best moments that we have available. Because one day we're going to look back and think about the good old days, but the good old days are right here, right now. We have that joy that we can access.
it's, it's those core memories. Like you mentioned, like we're of the generation that going to McDonald's was awesome. Like it
Yeah.
was, and it like my happy place that I think about is like being, 10 or under and that walk into Toys R Us and thinking
Oh,
all the rainbow colors it had, the giraffe and everything. But it's like there is no Toys R Us happiness as an adult,
yeah, totally. I mean, I think as a kid, we're unadulterated. We're not patterned and beaten down by society, if you will. We don't have bills. We don't have stressors. We don't have these big IRS agents or whatever it might be that's coming down on us. And yet we still have that power that we can say, look, this too shall pass. Or we can take a moment and realize that our breath happens without us knowing. If we separate ourselves 18 inches from our head to our heart, we could truly find things that inspire us that we love. And too often we'll maybe get sidelined. But as a kid, that's what we have. We have the love from our parents. We feel protective. And then we have that fun. And if it's fun, it gets done. I remember walking into Toys R Us as well. I think that we do have things for us as adults that are crucial. And so I talk a lot about being great, being grateful, reflective, ethical, accountable, and transformational. And for me, I have a list on my phone of all the things that I love and that I find, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I keep track of those so that I can go back and revisit them and continue to infuse my life with joy.
Yeah. So, you've built this speaking platform, based on grief and this philosophy, really, and you've done that. You've continued to speak. You've built out coaching, individual coaching. You've done it into companies, for cross cultures. Uh, while you get that piece where we get connected with ourselves, once we do that, how do you help people? Because you said I think the next part of that is building your mission. What's your mission, Cass? Oh, I want to live a happy life. I want to help others. I want my family to be happy. I don't want to worry about the stupid stuff. Like we've all got that generic. That's not a mission. That's just kind of a laundry list of like things. Like how do you walk somebody through building their own personal mission?
Oftentimes we come up with this generalized statement, but we really need to go deeper in that. And I mentioned that previously in building your mission is to really sit with where does your heart live and where is your head at. But there's a Venn diagram. Obviously, you have your skills, you have your passion, and you have obviously what it is that you're most passionate about from your heart perspective. But when we start with the mission, ultimately, whether it's personal, and it can be different, right? For your brand or ultimately for your company. But if your personal mission and you're working for a company and organization, you need to ensure that you have that cultural alignment. And that'll start with some of your values and your beliefs. We'll go further into that and really digest what are your values? What are your belief system? What do you believe to be true, Cass? Or like, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? What's the movie of me on a regular basis where you're saying, oh, well, when I was a kid, my dad had to work hard. And he always said, you have to work hard if you want to make a lot of money. And a lot of those baby boomer type of narratives still sit in people that are in and around our age that we need to obviously rip that to shreds and rip that apart because our mindset is our biggest asset. So starting with the mission, really going deeper into your highest commitments and going deeper into why. Like if you want to live a happy life, why? I want to be more fit. Why? So for me, a simple example is I work out every morning, and there's a plethora of reasons why I do that. Because I want to live a long life. I've already computed that by the time that I'm 80, I still want to be walking, standing, playing with my children. I'm an old dad. I want to be able to hold my grandkids. I want to visualize that moment. And these are things that I work with clients, whether or not it's professional or personal, to really go forth and visualize these moments and get very specific. In addition to working out every morning, it allows my entire day to go better because my endorphins are flowing. I'm drinking a lot of water. I'm hitting 8 glasses of water each day. I'm eating my proteins. I'm making sure that my meals are aligned. If I don't do that and I sleep in, a lot of those things don't happen. But those are all leading up towards ultimately, living a longer life, being at peak performance that I can talk to you on a podcast and not be, falling off a little bit later in the day. So we'll start with the mission. And then we'll get very clear on what our message is. Sometimes it's I help X do Y so that we can communicate that message effectively and easily in an elevator or to your target audience. So effective marketing and media is when you have a fully defined niche, and then you have an irresistible offer. So if you're working on your personal development, that's one area. If it's professional, we want to make sure that we're building a product service that's delivering a win-win-win. And I know this is a long-winded answer, but that win-win-win is going to be for your company, it's going to be for your consumer, and it's going to be for your community. And that's where we want to dig in deeper, that when somebody engages you or your company and organization, how are they leaving better? And then, so we have mission, messaging, and then the media is when we start to work on those relationships and the marketing. And then lastly, we want to build that movement. So that's how we take that personal mission. We find that cultural alignment with your organization, and then it transcends through your company.
Who do you think misses the mark? Who do you see that is just losing a missed opportunity?
The missed opportunities in the marketplace, I think there's always an opportunity for you to grow or to change your model. It's a challenge for certain areas that maybe are not environmentally sound. You look at Exxon, or you look at, different companies that, BP, where yes, it's an energy source for us to continue to provide and to power our lives and our services. There's also the environmental or the ecological impact that it happens to your organization. If they're dumping water with the plastic production, there's a big pushback right now with microplastics. And a lot of companies and corporations are now shifting to glass. So I think understanding, especially with the new generations that are coming up, the way that people are engaging with you, there was a rise in Zoom calls or Riverside platforms or ways that people are virtually connected. But now more so than ever, you're seeing a pushback for IRL, in real life. So there's a lot more experiential companies and organizations that want to bring you together face to face. So, whether or not it's something that's drastically impacting your health or impacting your well-being, there's the mental health. There's been a huge rise in mental health. I have a company called Gents Journey that's all about men's mental health. And so just making sure that your C-suite and then the products and services that you're delivering are positively impacting your customer, your consumer, and your community, I think is key. And making sure that if there is a gap, that you are working towards closing that gap. And that's where you see a lot of Apple trying to bring jobs to the US, or, a rise in, diminishing the amount of microplastics, or even Coca-Cola beverages, or different companies that create soft drinks. You've seen the rise in Poppy because that's more probiotic based as opposed to added sugars, which are not necessarily good for you, or processed foods. Kraft Heinz, they just split because there's been a big pushback on the number of processed foods. So they're like, okay, how can we split this brand off and focus our attention so that we can actually move forward and generate more interest from the consumer?
About 8-9 years ago, you opened up the Seidel Agency.
Yes.
Like, what caused you to take that road into entrepreneurship?
That's an awesome question. Thank you for asking me that. So first I was an engineer for Motorola. I used to make microprocessing chips. So it was all about process improvement. I was in industrial engineering, but I had a love for entertainment. So I transitioned. I was an actor and an entertainer for a number of years. Then I started to determine, how can I bring my right brain with my left brain? How can we be creative, but also analytical? And so that's when I began to work as a content creator, and I was creating content. I was a YouTube influencer back in 2011 before YouTube took off. I did the first ever live comedy stream on YouTube. I had a show that I developed, and then I really had a love for marketing and brands and media. So I started creating content in and around that. And I worked as an influencer, at which point I saw that there was a huge opportunity within video marketing. And you see it now with all the social media platforms. Content is needed on an everyday basis. And so that's when I decided to move forward and build my agency. And I worked for a company called Nexagy, which was an aesthetic medicine company that helps with hyperhidrosis. So some people excessively sweat, or when they speak, they have a lot of perspiration. And this was a treatment that allowed you to address that. And then that way you could feel confident in your everyday life. And so when I created my organization, the Seidel Agency, the slogan is do good, give back, make an impact. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, purpose-driven campaigns. I call, instead of PR, I call it purpose relations instead of public relations. But my mission was to do good, give back, and make an impact. And I made a commitment to only work with socially conscious brands. And that's where it comes with the mission, the message, then the media and marketing, and then the movement. Because what it is, when people engage with you and your company and or your brand, they know that there is a positive impact, not only to them, but also to their community.
But so you're in a world of industrial engineering, and then you I don't want to say abandon that, but you go into acting and comedy. What is that like? What is that transition? Do you just get up and quit your job one day and go into it? Are you fed up with one, or is it just something of following your passion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in today's fragmented world, we no longer have a job for 35 years. My father worked for Sperry Unisys Mapper. It was all the same company. He was a computer. He worked within computers. And so I actually was working for Motorola, and I was an industrial engineer, and I got let go. I was laid off. So I said, okay, this is my opportunity to pursue what really lights me up. And that's where I was involved in science and mathematics. I was a people pleaser. My parents said, look, you're great in that. And that's how I ended up in engineering. Still love breaking it down and figuring out problems and how we could solve them, and hypothesis, time and motion studies, all those amazing things. But at the same time, like I said before, my gift of storytelling and exploration and really, expressing myself was not being fulfilled. So I went from one extreme to the other. And then I had a moment of clarity or an epiphany. It was like, let me bring both of these together. It was a 180-degree flip. I went to New York City. I was actually supposed to work for the NBC Page program. It did happen, at which point I said, okay, well, I'm here in New York. Let me pursue what I've always wanted to do. And I trained for 2.5 years, and I learned how to effectively, tell stories, to act, to entertain. But all that came from my childhood when I was growing up with divorced parents, and I became a people pleaser, and I searched for validation. And so as an actor first starting out, I was wanting to be famous and find validation and purpose.
Be loved.
Yeah, be loved. But now, working with speaking and talking to business leaders, it's not about me. It's about them. It's about holding up a mirror and say, okay, you can hear from my stories, but see yourself. How can we improve you and your ultimate life? And know that your story matters. And the story that maybe, like you said, your story as a 7-year-old with the Transformer, it can change. And as you begin to get access to your mindset and the thoughts and the limiting beliefs and what you really want, you can change that and realize that anything's possible.
What were those years as an actor? And did you do stand-up comedy or just kind of improv?
Improv. I trained with iOS, and then I also trained with UCB in New York City with Amy Poehler. They had these really cool things called ASCATs, and they would come in and do all of that, where they would, you give them a suggestion, and then they do an entire night of comedy based on these suggestions. But it was a fascinating experience. It was an area of exploration of raw, open artistry. And so I tried it all. I wrote poems, I sang songs, I got on stages. And so it was just an opportunity for me to bear who I was.
I've got to imagine it's a platform of creative experimentation and stimulation emotionally and all of that, like something that you can't go anywhere else to get.
Yeah, the concrete jungle of New York City is unlike any other. I'm actually going back there not too soon. But one of the things about that experience is, as an actor, you get rejected every single day. And so that also is part of my journey of grit and determination and resilience. Back in the day, I would do anything and everything to try and make things happen because I felt as if, look, this is going to happen. I have to do it. But there's such a high degree of luck that is involved in that field. You could have the biggest amount of talent. I just saw an interview about Will Ferrell. His father said, look, I know that your talent, if it was based on sheer talent, you would be a success. But obviously, just due to the sheer volume and the numbers, there is a great deal of luck involved in this. So if for some reason you feel like this isn't the right path, it's okay to bow out and to try something new. And Will Ferrell said that unlocked him, and that gave him the freedom to fly and to not worry about anything else. And so while I was doing that, there was tons of rejection. I had countless stories, but that built a great deal of growth and resilience. What we go through, we grow through. And so that is something that I apply on a business perspective or when working with others and coaching them to realize that what is that idea or that thought or that business or that passion that you think about all night long. And so ideally, we want to get you to a place where you never work another day in your life and you're at a position or working for a company where you are fulfilled and you can't wait. So even if there is rejection, it doesn't matter because you love it so much.
What is kind of the thing that fills your cup? What are the fries at the bottom of your bag that kind of keeps you going?
So thank you. The fries at the bottom of my bag would be conversation, connection, community, and collaboration. One of the things that I enjoy most is the face-to-face time. And that's what I enjoy about speaking when we do keynote speaking and I talk about the hidden power of growth or connection as a currency in the age of AI. AI is merely a tool. A lot of people are worried about AI and technology and the jobs in 2030 will be totally different from now. Yes, but our skills as communicators, storytellers, and our ability to look across the aisle and connect with somebody face to face, eye to eye, heart to heart are what light me up. And that's why I created my men's group, because we have these really engaging and delightful conversations of how baby boomers are much different than us as fathers, because back then everybody had to be hard. Their vulnerability was looked at as a negative attribute, but now as leaders, the more open and vulnerable and the better that we can create a friendship or a connection with not only our colleagues, but our loved ones, the more fulfilled we will be in life. So the fries at the bottom of the bag for me is connection and communication. And that's where with my men's group that I created called Gents Journey, we have conversation cards. And it's simply asking questions with one another, such as, what is your favorite sandwich? When was the last time you cried? Who could use you in their corner right now? To me, that's what lights me up. I enjoy talking to individuals and them getting to share what it is about them that they love so much.
One of the things you also talk about going along the way is the it makes me giggle, but I carry it with me, is turning your diss track into a path for success.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Well, let's talk about our diss track first. How are you going to identify our diss track?
So the diss track to me is, I'm a big musician guy, is your disadvantage. Essentially this is a superpower of yours. And once you realize what it was that maybe limited you or kept you from being your greatest potential, you can unleash that. And it's much like anything they say, turn your mess into your message or your pain into your purpose. But me growing up, and even now I have, I guess you could say I'm disabled, but I'm hard of hearing. So I had tubes put in 7 times when I was younger. I was the kid who would always have to have earplugs in, wearing swim caps when you go into the school. People would always make fun of me. And I developed this thing called white coat syndrome or white lab coat syndrome, where every time you go to a doctor, they have that white jacket on, you immediately get anxious and scared and fearful. And so it took me a long time to work through that. But now when I started my agency, I started working with plastic surgeons. So it's funny to think about these things, whether you try to avoid them or you mention them, they often kind of come full circle. And so I ended up now working with plastic surgeons on a regular basis and helping them with their strategies and their marketing. My diss track started with me not being able to hear and getting made fun of because I can't hear. And even now, I still can't hear very well. How about you?
So, man, I was always a fat kid and I've always struggled with my weight. So to this day, it's something I've gotten skinny. I've gotten unhealthy skinny. I've gotten muscular. I've done it all. Yeah. The maintaining of it is the biggest piece of it.
And those McDonald's Happy Meals, that we're eating as kids.
Exactly. No, and it is the thing that you struggle with, and it's kind of something that we kind of have owned in the firm I work, my accounting firm, is I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of lying, and as a kid, when you can start sniffing out lies, You think like, oh, you get streetwise, but really it's very uncomfortable. There's no certainty. Like you don't know you're always fighting to fight what's real.
Yeah.
And I think as I've grown older, I've always just wanted people to know I'm being as honest as I possibly can, honest to the best of my ability or maybe my knowledge. So I might tell you something wrong, but I'm not doing it, intentionally. It's just I don't know better. So as we, start thinking about what our core strengths are from there, like I wanted to be like, we're built on honesty and trust, but at the same time, I also have the philosophy of is anybody that tells you to say trust me, do not trust that person.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that we've instilled in our culture with my team is we've got to be their most trusted resource without ever asking them to trust us. And the only way we can do that is by being consistent. We got to show up and we've got to answer to the best of our knowledge, full transparency.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think to go back to, not to beat a dead horse, but that connection is currency. When people trust you and you have that relationship, then you don't have to say, trust me. They automatically do. And so when you can connect to yourself, when you can connect to your clients, when you can connect to your greater cause, that allows you to actually turn it into an actual meaningful experience as opposed to something that's transactional based, where they're just a client and you want their money or you're trying to sell them. And so there's a really cool thing that's become a growing trend. It's called a mind movie, where in lieu of visualization boards, to realize your highest potential and to get to where you want to be, you can use Canva. So Canva, you can take Canva, you can visualize what it is for your team or for yourself and where you envision you'd like to be, create a really cool, compelling video, and then put some engaging music underneath that inspires you and impacts you, gets you in a place where, yes, these things are these things are possible. And it's kind of like the GPS. You don't need to know how you're going to get there. You just need to know where you want to be. And for you, it's, open, it's transparent, it's trustworthy. But these mind movies you can play for yourself on a regular basis so that you can, get rid of the limiting beliefs, fire at peak performance, but also achieve ultimately what you want, your greatest dreams, and go from a place of love, acceptance for your dreams, as opposed to letting that fear hold you back.
What does the finish line look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of really cool, platforms. So Dan Harris does some meditation. There's the School of Life, which is another really amazing platform where their mission is to help you heal, learn, and grow. And so that's what I'm ultimately working on right now, is finding ways that we can help change makers, C-suite, whomever, small business owners, but ideally people who are wanting to instill lasting change, building a platform and a portal where we can empower each other to be the best version of each other. In college, I worked for Disney, and I was part of the college program where they select students from different universities. I went to Penn State. Shout out to Penn State football. Let's go. But they were all about synergy of 1 + 1 = 3. And so when they would put out a movie, it wouldn't just be a movie. It would be the merch. It would be the soundtrack, be all these individual elements. And so that's what we're working on our side of things with my speaking and my agency, to build a platform where we can be synergistic around other change makers to help each other win.
How do you balance that where smaller firms like ours, really, as you mentioned, the riches are in the niches?
Yeah. So for you, what we want to ultimately do is we want to set ourselves up for success. It's not going to come overnight. Obviously, too often people think, okay, I want to do this for a month, 3 months, but really success. I was just having an epiphany the other day. Success for me takes 20 years. I launched a successful podcast. It took me 20 years. Another project, that the TEDx talk, to be speaking on stages, it took me about 20 years. But these things take time, but it starts with 3 systems, or three components for each business. It starts with your systems, it starts with your strategies, and it starts with your solutions. And that's where oftentimes a lot of companies and their businesses or key opinion leaders, they start like, hey, I just want to do this. And that's where on the bottom is our foundation to get back to your mission, then your message, then your marketing and your media, and then your movement. But that's where we need to look into your systems. What are the systems that you've built? Obviously, we want them to run while you're sleeping or while you're or awake. Then your solutions, what are these key solutions or frameworks like you were just talking about? And then lastly, the strategies that we can implement to do so. And that's where we will need to test it. And with the rise of automation and AI, second part is documenting all of that, seeing the time management, figuring out where you want to be in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years. We'll look at those timeframes and we'll back them out. And then we'll start from ground zero. What do we need to do? What do we need to delegate? And what do we need to delete? And that's, if you're a solopreneur or a small business, oftentimes these Fortune 500 clients, we've worked with Coca-Cola and Amazon. They have a lot of that in place. And they simply have, the end piece where they want to build a movement. Okay, great. We can help you with that. But too often, organizations will jump into marketing or jump into some of these strategies before they fully flushed out what their mission is that you want people to believe in you or to invest in you with. And that's where we have to do some iteration and some testing to see what resonates. Obviously, come from the heart. Make sure you strategically position it so that the people that you're attracting or wanting to work with are, experiencing that and being moved with what you're delivering them.
With everything you've built, what is, whether it was industrial engineer or going back to your days in comedy and acting, what is one of the skills that you would have not thought is transferable that is probably the strongest asset you have today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think soft skills are more important now than ever. And so for me, I think it's the power of pause and listening. To go back to my diss track. So for so long, I couldn't hear as a child and people thought that I was not paying attention. And so then I hit this piece where I was a people pleaser and I was talking for attention and whatnot. But then as I aged, realizing that there's so much power in listening. And when we listen and take a beat, that actually brings us to the present moment. Because too often we're trying to go forward to the future, think about something that they're saying and wanting to share our perspective. But the most important thing at the end of the day is listening. It could be social listening from a marketing perspective. It could be active listening when you're talking to someone, or it could just be listening to somebody who's on stage, to be empathetic and to connect with them and their story and to experience that. Because at the end of the day, we are all one, we're all connected. Whatever I do, I hate to say it, is will probably impact somebody on the other side of the globe.
So we're gonna share the links to the Seidel Agency, to everything from there. From there, we'll be able to get to your TEDx and stuff like that. Quick question: what do we need to do to get your comedy reel viral? What needs to happen there? Because it's out there. I found it.
Yeah, so it's you could just look it up, Steven Seidel Comedy Room. We had some fun during the days. I remember there was one audition. It was probably the most fun ever. And I'll be honest, I'll give you a little feedback. When I was in LA, I met a lot of individuals. So I used to watch Punky Brewster as a kid, and I sent her my headshot when I was like 7. And then I ended up working with her. This all goes back to the stories that we're telling ourselves, the things that we're surrounding ourselves with. These things stay within the hemisphere. And then I also met Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens. He became
huge. I mean, I'm still a man-child because of Pee Wee Herman.
He gave me so much to learn from. I would go and I had lunch with him. He would send me birthday cards, text messages, and to talk about connection. He would remember everybody's birthday. This is before technology.
Did you get on that list? Because I just watched the documentary about.
I have all the stuff somewhere downstairs. I have all the Christmas cards. He would send me, I changed my phone number, but I was on his list. I would get a message every year for every holiday and every birthday. And
I was too jealous.
He was amazing. And so to go back to that, I noticed that I would go to these auditions and I have the tendency to get in my head too much. And I know that about myself, but there was one for Kawasaki and they wanted somebody to just act wild and act crazy. And I was like, I'm just going to go balls to the wall, just be my crazy, quirky self. And that was the one that I booked. It was, and then they did a lot of B-roll and whatnot. And I said, just do whatever you want. And it was just so free. And that's what I try and get who's ever listening. Don't censor who you are. That's the most important part of this whole conversation. Our uniqueness is what brings us the value in the world that we live in.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for being a part of this. And definitely, we'll make sure we get everybody out to your website and learn more about you and get that comedy reel going viral.
Oh, I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, and go out there. And what I would love is for you to grab yourself a transformer and text me or email me and let me know how it feels holding it in your hand.
I got one right behind me. It's the key one. It's the best transformer. I'll let you figure out which one is the best.
Okay. We'll leave that up to the audience. Thanks, man.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much. Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of Influencing Entrepreneurs, be sure to subscribe on YouTube at Nexagy Education.